In this two-part video, I'm going to walk you through this lesson, Unit 5, Day 8, World War II Propaganda. In the first video, we're going to walk through the lesson and see some pointers. And in the second video, I'm going to give you an answer key and explanation to the propaganda posters, along with some historical content. So there are a couple of important notes in the notes to teachers section that I just want to make sure you're seeing. The first thing is that this lesson has a lot of posters. Students are going to engage with a few different sets, and so if you're in a platform like Zoom or Google Meet or Microsoft Teams that allows breakout rooms, this is a great place to do a jigsaw style lesson. Assign students one group of posters and then have them share what they learn with each other if you're looking for a way for students to engage with each other or a time saver. But that's of course optional. And the second thing that you want to pay attention to is that the slides have a lot of posters on them, so there are links underneath each of them so that kids can sort of zoom in and see them much bigger. And I also wanted to point out that there are 6 document sets, and then there's also there's 6 document sets, including the one that teachers are going to demonstrate with. And so you can assign these individually. You can do them in groups. When this lesson was originally created, pre-online learning, these were meant to be sort of a gallery walk style learning. So there's a variety of ways you can assign these outside of just what the slide deck says. I also want to say that there's also a student-facing video for this lesson, which will model the poster analysis. So once you get to that section of the lesson, you can choose to introduce it yourself, or you can use the already created video for students. Okay, so just like every lesson, it starts with a focus question. The focus question for this one is, how did World War II affect the U.S. at home and abroad? My favorite thing about this lesson is that it's really about propaganda. The students are going to see a lot of examples of propaganda, but through those posters, they're going to learn a lot about what was going on in the home front, including victory gardens, rationing, ride shares, war bonds, some of the more important stuff that was going on in the home front effort. The lesson objective is to analyze and critique World War II propaganda posters. And they are going to start that with the Rosie the Riveter, "We Can Do It" famous poster, which most of our students are going to be familiar with. So I just have an answer key here. This is not on the original. This is not on the student-facing slides, but it's when you're having students make observations on the poster, you really want to make sure that they are pulling out the details, because it's going to be important in an analysis of any sort of propaganda. So all the text, all the imagery, and even the colors can be important, because bright colors tell a different story than black and white. So I wrote in this one, there's a woman wearing a work shirt and a bandana, flexing her muscle and saying, "We can do it," and that there's bright yellow and blue colors. The "what I wonder" section is empty, because this is pretty much an area for students to have different answers. Some things that students might wonder were these posters effective at the time? Were they as famous in World War II as they are now? Who was Rosie the Riveter is probably a pretty common one that's going to come up. So if you want to be able to answer those questions, you might have an answer in your back pocket, but you can always ask kids to look it up. And these are student opinion questions. I mean, the target is definitely women, but would it be effective in convincing women to join the workforce? This is a little place for a little discussion around that poster. And you might go back and you might talk about why this poster might have been effective, what was drawing about it, and bring in the idea of why is it such a big deal today, this poster, which we see in pop culture and media a lot. Okay, so this slide about propaganda is going to be your background section, and it's really the one place where you're delivering a lot of content in the lesson, and so you're going to be reinforcing this content when reviewing the posters. So just remember that students can be referencing this slide of information. Um, it does also remind students that this is not the first time they're talking about propaganda. Propaganda was a lesson in World War One. So if that is something is a lesson that you taught, then make sure to revisit it and reinforce what was learned in the World War One discussion. Um, and then in this slide, you're also talking about war bonds and rationing, workforce changes, and sort of the patriotism that was going on. So um, those are going to come up later on. So if kids need that background, this is where they're getting it. And then you're going to jump into the introduction and model. I'm not going to go into too much detail here because I'm going to do that in the student facing video. So if you want to use that to help students or yourself, please make sure to check it out. And like I said before, just, if you want students to look at the posters more closely, you can have them click on the links to open up bigger, and then you're going to answer these questions for students. So what is this poster trying to do? It's trying to convince Americans that they should not discuss important details of the war. And looking at the symbols, what do they mean? The answers here say there's a sinking ship, and there's also the Navy. So the symbols are representing the military failing in the war, right? And then the last question is, according to these posters, how could Americans civilians change the course of the war? And this, I found that these answers were pretty similar to the answers to question one. So if you were looking for an additional question from the original lesson, a question that's not on this one was, which poster is the most persuasive and why? I like this question a lot because it has students engage with the posters and really try to analyze for themselves what works and what doesn't. So that's where I'm going to stop for video one. Video two is going to pick up on the next slide, walking through the answers to the poster questions.